last Tuesday against the Phoenix Suns, it was the Warriors against them, and the Warriors, they lost to the Suns 119 to 116, but that wasn't the main takeaway from that game. So during that game, you can go back and watch the film, but apparently Draymond Green, he ended up getting suspended indefinitely by the NBA, and there's not really a timetable on when he will come back. But what led to this suspension was the fact that during that game against Phoenix, Draymond Green ended up doing a 360 hit in the face against Yusuf Nurkic. And that led him to having his third ejection in 15 games. So the first time was he was suspended for 5 games against Rudy Gobert, putting him in a headlock during that scuffle, during that game against the Timberwolves back on the 14th of November. And then, that was the second one. The first one was when he picked up 2 technical fouls against the Cavaliers on November 11th. And then December 12th was this game against Nurkic. And it's not a surprise when it comes to Draymond Green because he's known to run his mouth and make blasphemous actions against players where it's like, bro, that's not even necessary. I mean, you're seeing him stomping on players' chests and putting guys in the headlock. I mean,
how many people has he kicked in the groin? I
mean, he pretty much has done everything. So I'm not sure if he's practicing Taekwondo or whatever the case may be, but he's just doing stuff that's just really unnecessary. And again, which has led him to multiple ejections and technical fouls. It's a mess. And of course, we can't forget about the time when he punched Jordan Poole in the face, and that was a teammate of his when Jordan Poole was a member of the Warriors during that time before he got traded to the Washington Wizards. So now with him being suspended indefinitely, there's, like I said, there's not really a timetable when he'll come back, and he will have to seek counseling and further help before he comes back to play. But during the post-game conference, Yusuf Nurkic did mention that, hey, I don't know what's going on with this brother. He needs help, blase, blase, blase. And it is true. And I understand when you're getting technical fouls and ejections, of course, that's coming through a lot of emotion and things mentally that's going on through your mind. And a lot of guys, they get technical fouls or ejections through passion. And Jerome, I think it was, I can't even remember, but Trae Young, he just got ejected not too long ago, but that's a different situation because he ended up getting fouled on a play and it was quite evident that he did, but it'll come back to me. But I mean, players, they get ejected if a player or they get into a scuffle with a referee or an argument or something like that, that's one thing. But if it's where you're getting these technical fouls and ejections because you're doing stuff that's unnecessary, then one would think that, yeah, this guy needs help. And this is not helping the Warriors at all, because if they're looking to win another championship, which I don't see, to be quite honest with you, unless they make major upgrades around the roster, then again, they're going to need all the help that they can get. And with Draymond Green being suspended and don't know when he's going to come back, this hurts the team a lot more.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know how we can, I don't know if we can really like say like the man just needs help or if he's going through something mentally. I think that's a little bit of psychoanalysis that a lot of people are trying to do with Draymond Green. I think this is simply his role on the team. He's the enforcer. He is the dude that whenever, someone chirps at or comes at his teammates, he's going to come after them, and it's going to be too much sometimes. Just like we saw with Rudy Gobert, Draymond did way too much. On this flip side, though, a 360 John Jones style slap to Nurkic, that was definitely uncalled for. So I get the suspension. I understand that. I just don't think you can really claim like he may need help. I just think this is what the Golden State Warriors have encouraged over these years. When he punched Jordan Poole, he didn't face any suspension for that from the team. So this is kind of what they have enabled. And in some ways, I do kind of feel bad for Draymond because he's really born in the wrong era. If this was the 80s, then he would have fit perfectly in that era of basketball. This is exactly what they were doing. They were throwing blows. They were stomping on folks. They were doing hard fouls. They were choking people out back then. But
it's a different time these days because, I mean, if you contest a jump shot and if your finger happens to touch the player's hand or whatever, that's a foul. So the league is soft. I'm just going to call it what it is. And of course, when, like you say, we go take this back to the 80s, I mean, like you say, bodies throwing all over the place and guys getting cuts and hits and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that's how it was back in the day. But now it's gotten to a point where you can't really touch anybody. But in this case here, and like you say, Draymond Green is the enforcer for the Warriors. He's always been that way. That's like you say, has always been his role, and he's the heart and soul of the team. But and that's what you need. You always want guys that you always need to have that alpha dog that's always going to be there for your teammates, but not in a way where you're hurting your team. Because as I mentioned, the West has gotten a lot stronger, and so has the Eastern Conference. So if the Warriors, if they feel like that, hey, this team can make some noise, they can make a deep run into the playoffs, they're going to need to have everybody on board. And with Draymond being out and not knowing when he's going to come back, it just hurts the team a lot more. And like I said, I don't think the Warriors, they're going to win another championship if they make some changes to the roster. They're going to need a lot more help. But with this just doesn't help the team in any kind of way. And I do feel like that Draymond needs help because, again, you're putting guys in a headlock. You're stopping on their chest. But because, I mean, really, these are serious injuries if you think about it, especially when he stomped against Sabonis.
Like, that was really bad.
I mean, he could have had damage to his chest or his heart. And I mean, if you did that to a regular sized person, I mean,
they're in the hospital.
That'd be in a hospital for real. And, you know, of course, guys like you and me, guys against Sabonis, I mean, these guys are 6'9", 6'10", so of course they're a lot stronger than us. But if a guy like me at my size at 5'6", and if I end up getting stomped on the chest and Draymond did something like that to me, I probably would end up being in the hospital. So these are kind of things that you really have to look out for. And around the league, when you hear about Draymond Green, people say that, he's a nice guy, he's a good person, and which I do believe that. I think he is a leader on the team, but at the same time, you got to show that through your actions, and he's just not showing that right now. So I think he needs some help.
Yeah, and it's gotten to a point where now even Steve Kerr can't really defend his actions anymore. Steve Kerr is pretty much came out and said the suspension indefinitely makes sense. It's because he was the same guy that punched Jordan Poole, that choked out Rudy Gobert, and slapped Nurkic just now. You know, all these actions have really led up to this indefinite suspension. And that is also why I do say they're doing him just a little bit dirty by suspending him indefinitely. I would say, look, a 10 to 15 game suspension would be plenty, but if you're going to give Draymond the Draymond tax, because that's definitely what this is, it's a Draymond Green tax when it comes to these suspensions, then I don't think indefinitely was really the way to go. I think they really wanted to send Draymond Green a message with this, and I think that the Warriors, they aren't really fighting as hard for him because I guess that they're getting tired of all the antics too, especially because, you know, at this point, he's not really a Defensive Player of the Year candidate anymore. He is one of the better players on their team still, but when that means when he's giving you 9 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists a game, you know, that isn't necessarily something that is worth all the suspensions if you're not going to get him on the court. And I think a few people have started to speculate now that, you know, the Warriors have already came out and said, like, Klay Thompson's future with the Warriors is a bit uncertain, and folks are saying, like, maybe Draymond Green should be on the trading block after all this stuff. Do you think that the Warriors at all would entertain trading Draymond Green? They've been lock steady with this big three, and we've said that they're probably going to go down with the ship. But with all this happening, with Klay Thompson playing like he's playing, and the Warriors not being quite as good as they'd expect, do you think that this is kind of what ends up spurring them to change gears and go ahead and get a bit younger?
It just depends on what the ownership in the front office thinks at the end of the day, because, and to be honest with you, I think the ownership, they have the final say on what they approve when it comes to making changes to the roster, because I'm always a big advocate in situations like this where you were drafted a Warrior, you're going to retire as one. We've seen now, to a degree, I mean, when you look at the Spurs, I mean, Manu Ginobili, he was retired as a Spur, Tim Duncan. So these are the guys, the main guys, your core players that brought you multiple championships. So one would think that, okay, they're going to keep the band together. These guys are going to they're going to retire as a Warrior. But in this case here, if they're looking to really compete for a championship, if they're really trying to, if they feel like they have one more in the tank to make a final push, then I would consider of doing that. Now, I don't know what you could get back in return for Draymond Green. There have been rumors that, hey, they could go after Pascal Siakam. I'm just saying this hypothetically. I don't know if Draymond Green would be a guy that they would ask for. I'm pretty sure they would ask for multiple first round picks and young players. So I'm not sure if Draymond Green would be a guy that they would ask for. If you're trading Draymond, then you're probably going to trade him to a team that's looking to make a deep run to the playoffs or a championship caliber franchise, in my opinion. But yeah, if they're serious about winning another championship, at least one more, then you would take that into consideration. But because again, the roster, it needs more talent if they're going to make a push like that. But then again, it is hard still, because even though Draymond, he doesn't put up big numbers, again, he's the heart and soul of the team. He's a guy that does everything. We're talking about statistically. He can score in the paint. That's where he gets majority of his points. He can rebound, block shots, get steals, and facilitate. And that's the one thing that I've always loved about Draymond, is his ability to facilitate. That 1-2 punch between him and Curry, that's what I do love about him. And so it'll be hard to give up a guy like Draymond, and not just all things he does on the court, but his legacy with the Warriors. And that's hard to really go through and give up. But like I said, if they're considering about winning another championship, then trading Draymond would have to be the answer, because they're already going through things with Klay Thompson, because that's another guy that may not come back to the Warriors. And to be honest with you, I'd rather keep Klay than Draymond if I had to choose. But I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's a bit tricky when it comes to trading Draymond, only because I feel like his value around the league may not exactly match what his value is to the Golden State Warriors.
Yep.
Like, you know, if you try to trade for Draymond Green, they may ask for a lot more than you're willing to give up, just because of everything you said, the fact he's the heart and soul of the team, and the fact that he is such a presence on that team, even without scoring the ball too much. Like, he's one of the main communicators when it comes to defense. He's one of the main facilitators offensively. So he definitely can bring a lot to the table on the right type of team. But I think the Warriors, there's a chance they may decide to go ahead and put him on the block, but I wonder if they're going to still be willing to actually, come down with their trade demands when it comes to Draymond Green. I just feel like part of me feels like they would just kind of hold him back and not be willing to pursue that trade too much, just because, everything he brought to the table over the years. And they may not be wanting to give him up for what teams are willing to trade him for. I don't think they're really going to trade him unless things really start going down the tube for the Warriors season and it becomes painfully obvious that rebuild is the only real option here. But Draymond Green would still have value with a lot of other teams. The Lakers would definitely take him in a heartbeat. I don't know if the Hawks are really in position right now to make those type of moves, but he's the type of presence that the Hawks could definitely use. We need some dogs in here, and a lot of different teams need a dog like Draymond Green. But what is it worth the baggage that he comes with too? Because if he's going to be fighting people, if he's going to be getting suspended, is it worth it at that point if he can't keep his cool to remain on the court?